I have no contact with some of my family, and it's because of stuff that has happened. But also, I realized when we were adults and talking, so like for instance, my dad would get very angry when I'm a straight shooter. You ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think. And he would get very angry when I'd be like, I don't know why you're surprised here. And so that was one of the reasons that I went no contact, was because it was like he didn't like a mirror being held up, or in my opinion, it was like there was a lot of anger, and he's like, that's not true. And I'm like, it is true. I know this firsthand.
Standing by your family would be to support them in any of the choices they make and to be kind and loving in any environment with your family. You know, there are stereotypes out there about polygamist families, and we've been trying to downplay those stereotypes.
We all made the choice to be where we are today, and I want my children to have that gift too.
Why don't you want to be part of our religion?
Because I don't want to share my husband. I thought that they looked at polygamy as a blessing. I'm not like Mariah.
We know Dayton, Roar, and Brianna come from a different family, but you can't tell us to change. Yeah, we're making changes. They have to make changes as well.
True.
And now, because they question it a little bit, I think it might be harder for Kody to feel like he's respected.
Kody's relationship with his older children, a lot of them were really, really good. Christine left and all that changed.
No, they're blocking me. They're not interested in talking to me.
Hi friends, it's Kody from Without a Crystal Ball. Welcome back to my channel. It is Wednesday, November 13th, 2024, and I hope you're having a wonderful day. Every single show that's ever been on TLC that has families, well, almost all, have ended up completely eroding, exploding, and conflicts occur from the family's involvement in the show, from the family's dynamics, from often a narcissist in the family being in control and forcing people to film that they don't want to film, using the show to control, promoting lifestyles or family systems that are not healthy, promoting cults, unhealthy marriages, whatever. There's been so many families on TLC, from the Goslins to the Duggars to the Browns to the Roloffs, the Platts, the Doricos, and the very long ignored Willis family and Toby Willis's arrest for doing awful things to his family and to his daughters. There have been so many divorces and a consistent theme in nearly every one of the families on TLC. Almost always one of the parents is a narcissist. And now we are watching the Brown family completely erupt and explode. And when this happened with the Goslins, when John and Kate, the most highly rated show on TLC, almost I think in history, 10 million people used to watch that show. Not at all the ratings that TLC gets today. And when they split, John left and wanted nothing to do with the series. And what did TLC do to retaliate? They sued him because he breached contracts. And John still owes TLC $1.8 million or some change close to that in a judgment that he lost in court. So when we wonder why Christine, Janelle, and Mary are still filming, it's that pesky contract that TLC waves over their heads and says, if you don't film, we'll sue you. That kind of pressure rolls down into families. And when you have family systems that are already being controlled by a malignant narcissist, that pressure can become suffocating, toxic, abusive. And then if you add the layer of polygamy on top of that, where it's already a patriarchal system, where children and women are supposed to be obedient, submissive, and keep sweet, it creates a very disturbing reality, not only for the women that are involved in the show, but for the kids that have appeared on the show that never consented to filming. Kids that had their parents bring cameras into their lives while they were children, film some of their hardest moments, most traumatizing moments, and using their lives for content. Kody Brown used his children for content and didn't pay them. Sure, the kids got trips. Sure, they got new homes, but those homes are long gone. Sure, those kids were given opportunities that other kids in this world weren't given, but they also sacrificed their privacy, their dignity, and they also sacrificed their future because forever they would be linked to a show about polygamy. That's a really horrible position to put a child in. One of my biggest angers about the family and the choices of Kody Brown and even the wives was that these children were linked to a criminal lifestyle, forced to be poster children for a criminal lifestyle that they never consented to even be a part of because they were only born into it. And now those children are starting to speak out. And Kody, through his control at TLC, is still trying to dictate and control the narrative about what his children say and what they don't say. And what's been making me very sad is even seeing how some of the mothers that have left Kody continue to lie about the state of their children, the fact that their kids have not been harmed by polygamy, that they are happy and well-adjusted when it's very clearly they're not, and the lack of accountability for even the women about what they've exposed their children to and the consequences of their lifestyle choice that impacted their children exponentially. And now a new child is speaking out, Madison Brown. Maddie, who once gleefully asked Kody to be the man that officiated her wedding and who had a bromance with her husband, is breaking her silence in a podcast and talking about why she cut ties with her family. Maddie's podcast, The Authentic Society, is hosted with her friend Jamie Lynn. And the two of them talk about their own challenges in very toxic families and unraveling their childhoods while also setting boundaries as adults. It's a rare view into the mindset of one of the children from Sister Wives, where the content of the series of the podcast is not about the tea and rehashing what happens on the show, but instead talking about what's going on behind the scenes, what they've experienced in their life, and the fallout from all of that. Madison had a bunch to say in this podcast, and I want to share a few things, a few of those details. One was about the estrangement that she has with her father and why she was estranged. She mentioned that Kody was always angry and never wanted to listen to her opinion, even when he asked for it.
I have no contact with some of my family, and it's because of stuff that has happened. But also, I realized I could, when we were adults and talking, so like for instance, my dad would get very angry when I'm a straight shooter. You ask me a question, I'm going to tell you what I think. And he would get very angry when I'd be like, I don't know why you're surprised here. And so that was one of the reasons that I went no contact, was because it was like he didn't like a mirror being held up, or my opinion. It was like there was a lot of anger, and he's like, that's not true. And I'm like, it is true. I know this firsthand.
Unlike some of her younger sisters and brothers, Madison actually spent the first 15 years of her life not on camera. And she lived a very different life than what you see of the children that are on the show today. Today, you see young children like Ariella Solomon and teens like truly benefiting from the riches of this family's participation in the show. While not always equitable, the family has a lot more money than they used to. When we first met the Browns back in 2010, it was evident that there was not a lot of money to go around. They drove cars that were very broken down. They did not have the nice fancy clothes. The women did not wear the jewelry they wear today. There certainly were not an excess fleet of expensive cars. Kody had a used Lexus. That was the extent of their luxury. So Madison spent her teen years, formidable years, on a show, forced to be someone that would promote polygamy. Madison actually was the first daughter of all of the daughters to reject the polygamous lifestyle and defiantly say that she would never be a polygamist, never share her husband, and got into a fight with Robin about joining a church youth group that wasn't Mormon or wasn't the same faith as theirs.
At a certain age, when they actually have their frontal lobe completely grown.
What the heck is a frontal lobe? You always told us that we could choose our church and we could be what we want.
You choose your church when you're an adult and your brain.
Well, I hate the church we have right now, so I don't hate it. I just don't like it.
Would not prefer to live it.
I would prefer not to live it.
What about Mormon church?
No.
So it's hard for me to sit here with these kids and say, oh, it's no big deal. It is. It's huge for us.
Madison always bristled about her participation, not only in the show that was about polygamy, but about this concept of even promoting polygamy, and often used her voice to declare her disagreement with their faith and stood out from the other daughters who kept sweet. Madison didn't keep sweet, and she didn't keep her voice silenced. And one thing that we don't talk about enough are the terrible people that have been associated with the Brown family and all of the criminals that each one of these adults have exposed their children to. The criminals that are within their culture and the exploitative individuals from TLC and the production company that saw them as an opportunity to make money and nothing more. And all of the strange, weird, creepy polygamists and other people that the Browns dragged their kids to go on to vacations with throughout the seasons, from the Dargers to the Colliers to that weird Missouri family where they all took the same bite at the exact same time. There was a lot of very strange and not good people that were introduced to these children, and exposing children to an underworld of trafficking of women, trafficking of children for labor, trafficking of products, sometimes weapons. One of Kody's friends that's on the show, Brian, was part of a gun trafficking ring in the early 2000s, and he pled to a misdemeanor to traffic 1,000 illegal guns into gun shows. Or Kyle Henderson, who beat his wife and was facing felonies when he was featured on Sister Wives. There have been countless people on this show that these children have been exposed to that they never should have been exposed to. And this is what she had to say.
Because of the way that I grew up, I feel like my parents exposed us to a lot of people that we shouldn't have been exposed to. And not that there was anything twisted going on, but they were just not good people. They were exploitive to my parents as well as the family. And then there's also the whole dynamic of my parents. So it's like, if I start to see like personality traits that were in either those people, bad relationships in high school, or like some family members that I have had to distance myself from, I'm like, we're going to take a break. We're going to just
Kody Brown already came into the show without much for moral character. He was morally bankrupt. He didn't care about ethics, morality, or even the law. Through that, he became wealthy, famous, and found people through his fame, or friends through his fame, that wanted to exploit the fame for their own personal gains. A lot of people, in a revolving door of people, were introduced to these children. But even before then, they were exposed to really bad people. These children were part of a church where people within the church have been accused of crimes, horrific crimes against children, against their wives. Those are the crimes that are not talked about on the show. There were unhealthy, toxic dynamics of breaking your child's will through extreme corporal punishment. And I'm not talking about a simple swat on the butt. I'm talking about paddling to break a child's will, leaving them bruised. Even Gwendolyn spoke about how her dad left her bruised several times when he was paddling her. There has been a lot of neglect of these children that has been completely ignored. Parentification of the adult children that has been completely ignored. And an utter lack of self-awareness by some of the women about the pressure they put on their kids. I would say today, Christine is by far the most aware of the consequences this lifestyle had on her children. I still believe that Janelle doesn't see the scope of her choices and how even sometimes her selfishness of she took less, she was okay taking less, but not thinking about how that would impact her children. I think this has had a very negative impact on the kids. And I think it took them to leave the culture in order to see this.
And I also think that when you become an adult and you start telling people about your experience, like I tell you, or I'll tell Caleb, like poor Caleb, when he came into the family, I'd tell him stories and he'd be like, that's not normal.
Right.
And I think that's when I first started to be like, wait a second, this dynamic isn't so normal.
Yeah.
And, or like, I always get messages from people who are like, you should just forgive your dad and, respect him. I don't think you know what you're talking about, because your experience with your dad could be very different than my experience with my dad. And you're telling me to just, he doesn't have any respect for boundaries. And so it's like, you have to play by his rules. And I just don't care to do that.
Can you imagine growing up in a household where you have 4 quote unquote moms and you watch these moms fight relentlessly, have jealousy, spill over, yell and scream, sometimes get physical, sometimes take out their frustrations with each other on the kids, moms locking themselves in rooms, devastated, crying, moms grappling with the devastation of dad taking on a new wife and a new sexual partner, women devastated when a wife gets pregnant because it's a reminder that their husband is having sex with someone else, being forced to accept infidelity under the guise of religion, being forced to accept perversion under the guise of religion, being forced to accept that it's okay for a woman to accept less than she deserves, watching their father favor some children over the other, favor some wives over the other, making demands of the wives, witnessing the toxic dynamics between these adults and the selfishness of those dynamics and how they don't include how that causes damage to their kids. You're bringing children into relationship problems that they have no ability to comprehend or understand. They do not know that this isn't normal. They don't know that it's not okay. They don't know that Kody's lifestyle is morally corrupt. That's harmful to kids. Kids are invisible in polygamy because the dads are out chasing women and the wives are at home heartbroken and overwhelmed. And the kids are left to raise their siblings because their moms are trying to work to pay the bills, scrape by, and then manage their own heartbreak. That's toxic. And for Maddie, she doesn't have to forgive her father for anything. If he doesn't respect boundaries and if he yells and screams at her when he talks to her on the phone and lies to her and lies about her, she shouldn't have to forgive him. And if she has issues, even with her own mother, those should also be heard. I shared yesterday that Maddie made comments about her mom that are not necessarily the most kind. She's not being cruel. She's just speaking to her experience. She's not necessarily letting her mom off the hook. She's recognizing that her mom is also a product of this system, but also it impacted her. And that's okay too. We can't glorify the women and what they've put their kids through because they've left without letting the kids say, this is what happened to me. And it wasn't like they said.
Sometimes I struggle with my mom because my mom is the nicest person ever and she struggles with it. So when I'm trying to bring something up to her, like, hey, this bothered me that you did this. I'm trying to not also hurt her feelings, but also not make her be like, feel bad too. Like I want her to be like, oh, I'm sorry. Like
I struggle with that with my.
Certainly Kody has his flaws, but have you ever noticed on the show that Janelle doesn't like accountability either? If she has conversations and has to talk about her past, does she ever acknowledge the fact that she made mistakes? No, very rarely does she admit that she's failed in any area of her life. and to this day still says she regrets nothing. There's this concept in this culture that they have to be perfect, and admitting failure is failing God. And so there's this level of narcissism built into this system where people just do not accept responsibility or accountability. And a lot of the conflict between her and Mary, even if Mary was a vindictive and, cruel woman, Janelle wasn't a wallflower either. I've never heard Janelle acknowledge the pain it might have caused Mary to come into a family where she was literally the ex-sister-in-law of Mary, married to Mary's brother. She has never acknowledged that the pain she had caused Mary by having a child before Mary had a child, after Mary had been trying to get pregnant. And when she did become pregnant, her response in a tell-all from years ago and in the book, Becoming Sister Wives, was she didn't care if Mary would be upset. Have you ever noticed that Janelle used Christine, and Christine has even at times expressed to Janelle that she felt like Kody and Janelle took advantage of her when they were in Lehigh and relied on her to do everything? Do you remember the first episode where Janelle was almost boasting that she gets to do everything she wants because she has Christine at home and then she also gets to work? It's hard to talk to someone that doesn't want to hear negative feedback because they want to view the world as they're on a self-improvement program to become a better person and to be perfect. And it's okay that we express that sometimes these women were not kind to each other, kind to their kids, or even kind to themselves. And sometimes they were very selfish and unaware and very self-absorbed in what their victimhood was versus how they've impacted others. Everyone in this family was hurting each other in different ways. And that's, again, a very unhealthy dynamic to put on a child. In a lot of ways, Janelle relies on her adult children to be not only like a child to them, but a co-parent to her. She puts a lot of pressure on her son, Logan, and now she's going into business with her daughter, Maddie. Janelle obviously loves her children, but she's clearly very locked in her own head at times. Sometimes aloof, maybe a little bit indifferent, sometimes even a little bit selfish. And Madison expressed in 2 separate episodes just some of her challenges with her mom. And then she also expressed why she will cut someone off. And this speaks to why she has no contact with her dad.
Work on that. But if you lie to me or lie about me, that's like, no. Controlling decisions in my life that have nothing to do with you. Right?
That's a big one.
I feel like so many people, especially like some of my family, has such colossal opinions about the way Caleb and I handle our lives. And it's like, this has nothing to do with you. Or like the way we raise our kids, or how we don't spank, which for some reason pisses people off. If you have an opinion about something in my life, and I'll tell you, like, this has nothing to do with you. Like, this is between Caleb and I.
That's a boundary.
And our kids. And they continue, then I'm like,
if you lie to me or lie about me, Kody's a very good liar. Not very good. He gets caught a lot. And if you want to control decisions in my life that have nothing to do with you, aren't about you, have nothing to do with you, and aren't remotely your business. And then she says there are people in her family that are angry with her for not spanking her children. This is the aspect of their belief system they've never talked about on the show that I wish they would. I mean, we saw Michelle Duggar pretend like she was the sweetest mom ever, but did we ever see her beating her babies on a blanket, even with her sweet little keep sweet voice? There is so much corporal punishment in this system, and it goes beyond corporal punishment. It goes into the abuse. And if kids are getting bruised by a paddle, you have gone too far. If you are leaving marks on your children and causing scars or wounds, that's actually what constitutes abuse. And they are taught in this cult that they should break the will of their children. Spare the rod, spoil the child. They use this very literally, and they're instructed to do this to their kids as a form of quote unquote discipline. And if you don't do this, you aren't obeying God and you must not love God and you're not living like God would want you to. And they use God to justify the abuse. I have a sense that Kody does not agree with how she chooses to raise her kids. And I have a feeling once she said that, there was a reason why she didn't want her kids around Kody. Kody said he scuttled away. She scuttled her kids away from him and then didn't want her kids near him. Janelle says it's because she doesn't want someone that's inconsistent in her life. I don't think it's just that I don't think she wants her kids around her abuser. Kody is a psychological narcissistic abuser. And Peyton has said he was punched in the mouth by his dad. That's also corporal punishment, and that's also child abuse. If you hit a child in the face, that's actually grounds for charges for child abuse. That's not a tap on the butt. I'm anti-spanking, but I do recognize there's significant differences between a gentle swat to get a child's attention to leaving bruises and causing trauma. Kody wants control of his kids, and he will use whatever means necessary. Maddie likened what happens in these cultures to having your will broken, like a baby elephant at a circus beaten into compliance and submission. That's what Kody wanted of his family. And Madison is not in any contact with him anymore because of his own behavior and his own abusive tactics. It's not Christine's fault or Janelle's fault that Kody doesn't have a relationship with his kids, like Robin and Kody like to blame. There's no repairing relationships with people like Kody because people that wake up to who Kody is know that he won't change. And the best way to get away from him is to not talk to him and to not have a relationship with him and to protect yourself from him. I think it's very brave for Madison to do this podcast the way she's doing it, and I applaud her for using her voice in this way. What are your thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't subscribed, and click the bell so you never miss a video. Thanks so much for watching. Bye, everyone.